the way that water rose out of Little River so fast, the weather is pretty much our lives.
That's all we do. That is absolutely amazing.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Creative Chaos. My name is Hunter Ezell. Logan is not here today. Like I said, she works at a flower shop. She is delivering flowers today. But if there's two people that I need to give my flowers to, it is Mr. David Powell and Mr. Mark Booker. Good Lord. Good Lord. If you can't tell, there are our guests today on the podcast. And whenever I tell you, you talk about, it's not too often you see real life superheroes in your own small town. But these two guys right here, we have been in some of the most insane weather conditions I have seen in my entire life. I've lived in Hopkinsville for for my entire life. I've lived in Hopkinsville for my entire life. And here recently, the weather has been absolutely insane. We had the floods back in April. We've had tornadoes running crazy. The Mayfield tornadoes in Kentucky, like the Mayfield, Kentucky tornadoes. And then we had all the stuff that happened this past week at the time that we're filming this. And today, my two guests are Mr. Weather and Wisdom himself and Mr. Mark Booker. What's up, y'all?
Well, we're glad to see you.
Glad to see you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. But no, for real, I think you guys are such a light to everybody these days.
Well, that's what they say, but I question their taste in light, I guess.
Well, I don't. I don't. I really do think that it's super incredible that, you guys use a platform and you go with it. I think back in the day, people used to just have to go outside and look at the sky.
Yeah.
And they can just go to the internet, go to Facebook. Well, me and Logan, my wife, will be sitting there and I'll be like, "What's the weather doing?" And she's like, "I don't know. Let's go ask David." Goodness gracious.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. It's super cool. Like I said earlier, me and David, we sat down. He showed me his headquarters, his battle station, if you will. And I was so freaking impressed. It looks like something you'd see out of a daggum superhero movie, literally. And he's got it going on. But, my best friend Peyton, he's like, "Dude, he almost took off work so he could sit up in here today."
Well, I would have loved to have had him.
Yes.
Yeah, he almost took off work.
We'll have to give him a tour.
Come on, he'd love it, man. He's like, "Man, I want to be a weather spotter." Growing up, my daddy, he was a weather spotter. And he'd take me. He'd get up in his Jeep. We'd go. So that takes me to my first question for y'all. How'd y'all get started?
Well, I've been in weather since I was 10 years old, so I've done it all my life. But I guess the thing that really got it started here locally is the 2006 tornado. That what was it, EF3?
It was an EF3.
It was a strong EF3. So 225 homes were damaged, 25 people injured, but no fatalities. So luckily, that is a sample of people becoming more educated on weather. Used to, they didn't know anything about it. They didn't know how to look at radar. Now they look at radar. Yeah, I know what that's doing. So, and I try to educate. Mark and I both, when we're doing something, we'll take time to try to explain what's going on. A lot of them say, "Well, what's a cap?" Okay, so we can explain what a cap is. There's all kinds of things. Most of them don't know you turn your vehicle into the wind if you got strong wind to keep from getting overturned. That's because your car is automatically aerodynamically designed to take strong winds. So we like to educate them, and most people appreciate that. So the 2006 tornado was the thing that really got it going, because after that, so many people were frightened every time a dark cloud came up. And so the emergency manager at the time was Matt Snorton. And so he saw an opportunity there. He said, "Look," he said, "Dave, why don't you take over the weather part of this under emergency management?" And I said, "Well, sure." So he took me before fiscal court, and they appointed me as the weather coordinator for emergency management, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So that's how it started.
Hmm. What about you?
Let's see. First interested in weather way back, always interested in weather. I grew up in West Virginia, but in 1974, when the big tornado outbreak happened, my sister and her family lived in Dayton, Ohio. And to go from West Virginia to Ohio, you take US 35, which goes right through Xenia. And seeing the damage in Xenia, like 2 or 3 days after the tornado hit there that wiped out most of the town, kind of got my interest going. And
Right.
I kind of pursued it on and off. And so when I grew up, I went in the Air Force, and I'm Air Force trained as far as my meteorology background. I got out of the service in 1990. Worked here locally in different. I worked in a factory here in Hopkinsville, and then I worked for General Electric for 23 years. Always continuing to pursue weather as a hobby and as a passion. And then when Dave started the Weather Spotters, I came on board and said, "Hey, I can help."
He has. He's helped a lot. Couldn't
Man.
have done it without him.
Well, that's crazy. I remember the 2006 tornado. My wife's parents' house was heavily impacted. That was the one that went through. Was that Sinking Fork area?
And then all the way across the county
Yeah.
and into Todd County.
Incidentally, the photograph, there's only one photograph of that tornado, and it was a 1 in a million shot. The camera was located on top of Jenny Stewart
I
Hospital.
remember because it was in the newspaper.
Yeah. And so at the very moment, it only snaps a picture once every,
Once every 3 minutes.
yeah, every 3 minutes. So at the time it snapped that, the lightning just happened to flash behind the tornado, which illuminated it, and you could see it. And so, like I said, it was a 1 in a million shot that photo was captured. And so it was impressive.
I don't know. I feel like there's something in the air. I mean, not literally, but I feel like there's something in the air where like people are more like terrified of the weather these days.
Well, it's not a secret. We've been in a period of weather extremes for about the past decade.
Yeah.
A lot of say, well, it's global warming. Well, there's no such thing as really man-made global warming. It is actually a natural occurrence because it's been warmer than this before back in history. I mean, they used to grow grapes in Greenland. So that's not really something that's new. It's new in let's say, I guess I would say modern history, but not in ancient times. So, you know, the other thing is that I don't know what it has to do with sunspot activity. That's part of it. There's a lot of different things that influences the one big one that's been affecting our weather for the last 2 years is the Hunga Tonga volcano that blew up in the Pacific Ocean. It actually put enough moisture in the stratosphere to change our weather patterns globally. And they say that it will last for at least another 5 years in the atmosphere because there's a tremendous amount of moisture thrown into the stratosphere.
Right.
And that makes a big difference in how weather responds. And so it doesn't take a lot of stuff in that stratosphere or even in the atmosphere in general to make a change in your weather.
I don't know. It's one of those things that I've just been real fascinated with. I think what's crazy about all of us living in Kentucky is that whenever I film weddings all over the world and stuff, they ask me what Kentucky's like, and I can't give them a straight answer because you can get 4 different seasons in a matter of a week.
You can get 4 different seasons in a matter of 24 hours.
Yes.
That's because that's where we're situated in the United States. We are kind of not directly in the Midwest, but we're in the part of the country where we're just east of the Midwest. So we get cold in the winter, we get heat in the summer, we get all the changes of the seasons in between. And again, sometimes when everything's in motion, we can get all 4 seasons in one day. And it just here, especially in Western Kentucky, we're like that. Eastern Kentucky is more, like the Appalachians.
Not too often I take on New Year's Eve weddings, but I had a New Year's Eve wedding up in Louisville, and we were driving home New Year's Day. And I remember Logan and I, we were going to get up real early and we were going to drive home on New Year's Day, but we decided to sleep in a little bit. And would you believe that if we drove home at the time we said we were going to, that tornado that happened New Year's Day, that just kind of appeared out of nowhere and went downtown, we would have been right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I remember that day. We had actually a spotter almost right on top of it when it happened. But you know what's strange about it is that was what we call a front ender. It was a tornado that spins up on the front end of a storm, and it can come down and touch down, do damage, and go back up before the radar comes around to
Right.
detect it. And that's exactly what happened. That's the reason it wasn't detected on radar, so there was no warning issued.
So that doesn't happen too often, does it?
Not too often, but it happens a lot more often than what you think, to be honest with you. So we actually, I won't say we discovered the front enders, but because we had more eyes on these storms, it started being reported more.
Right.
So now it's a very well known fact that could happen.
Right.
Yeah. The official term for it is an inflow notch tornado or inflow notch spin up. And it's just the way the winds come into the storm. You've got the strong winds coming out of the storm, and then there's winds coming in. And when it gets right on the edge, it gets to a point where it can start rotating.
Yep. And it's also terrain related. You know, there could be you people say, well, tornadoes, yeah, it's the same path the last one took. Well, it could be true because we did have a study done by a person at West Australia University.
Yeah, a grad student from Western.
And he determined that it was, in fact, terrain related because if you look at Christian County in general, and really anybody that's in our vicinity, there's a phenomenon known as the Pennyroyal Escarpment. And basically what that is when the Ice Age came and the glaciers melted, it left a risen area from, say, about the northern half of Christian County and Todd County and even Warren County and Bowling Green and all the way back over towards Trigg County. If you look at it, that ridge, if you travel 68 towards Bowling Green, that ridge off to the left is tall, but if you look south, on the other side of the road, it's flat. It's like in Oklahoma or someplace. So the fact of the matter is whenever you have an incoming, say, cold front from the north and you have warm air coming from the south and they hit, then you have a natural twisting in the atmosphere. And so a lot of times that's how those tornadoes form, especially along that particular area. There's actually 3 different corridors in Christian County because Christian County is the second largest county in the state. So there's one up in the north that has the stronger tornadoes. There's one along the one that goes through Hopkinsville, comes along 272 and goes on eastward. That's the middle one, and that's the one that has pretty powerful tornadoes, but also they have a lot of them along that. In fact, the one we had the other day, just south of Hopkinsville, that was a part of that 272 corridor. You know, it might not be necessarily right on the corridor, but it could be a mile or two either side of it, you know. But and then there's one that comes from the southwest going northeast that comes up like from Fort Campbell northeast towards Pembroke, and that's where the December 2021 Pembroke tornado occurred at. And so, yeah, that's very common.
So you're telling me that it sounds like most tornadoes, they pretty much follow like a same route?
Well, similar.
Maybe not like in a straight line, but in an area.
Same general vicinity.
Same general area. They'll kind of.
I call them corridors. You know, just like a corridor that goes up through a certain area that the tornadoes occur in. And you know, I went back on historical records and found that even back in the 1890s or 1800s when they were keeping records, that was usually the case. I was able to find out what path they took, and you know, so pretty well confirmed it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that whenever people ask me about the weather here and everything like that, like they've never been inside of they've never been in like a tornado environment.
Right.
And I'm always real grateful that anytime there's bad weather coming, I'm like I said, I'm not even amateur whenever it comes to meteorologists and stuff like that. But I like to feel like, you know, I'm like, oh, that's definitely not going to come my direction. Yeah. But it seems like everything always ends up, for the most part, always ends up missing Hopkinsville. Why is that?
Well, there's a number of reasons. There's also another phenomenon, and we've talked about this many times. We've talked to the National Weather Service about it. It's a phenomenon known as a cap. And basically what a cap is a layer of warm air in the upper levels of the atmosphere, usually around 5,000 feet, I guess.
5 to 10.
Yeah, somewhere between 5 and 10,000 feet. So in order for clouds to develop, you have to have rising air. And so For the rising air to occur, you have to have cooler temperatures around it. And then you have some source of heating, like surface heating from the sun or something, and that air starts rising. Well, when the air rises, then it hits that cap that happens to be the same temperature as it is. There's no reason for it to rise any further. It stops, and that puts and that's where you get the term cap. It puts a cap on any storms that would develop. They won't develop in that. So that's part of it. But there is a localized cap, and we haven't been able to determine why it's there. But it's there many times, and you can watch it on radar. We've seen this, gosh, hundreds of times over the years, and it's just
And not just for tornadoes and storms.
Right.
A lot of times, even in the winter, you'll have a snowstorm coming at you, and it'll get to where that cap is, and there's no more. Even in the wintertime, it needs lift to produce precipitation. It'll get to there, and it'll just when they say it splits and goes around us, that's what it's done. Is hit that cap.
I had a guy. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist,
Yeah.
but I had a guy. He's like, I think the government built the land between the lakes in order to weaken the storms that come towards Fort Campbell.
Yeah. Do you know that well after, it was probably in the late 80s when I was at Fort Campbell, that they finally recognized that the lakes had an effect on our weather. My station chief there, a guy named Gene Watson, actually.
So there is some weight to that.
There is. It acts like a sea breeze front.
Right.
So when the water's cooler, it takes energy out of the storms and they weaken. And you'll notice they get just past us a bit. They get past the cap, they get past the lakes, and they re-intensify.
explode. Yeah. And the same thing could be said in the early winter. If the storms come by and the water is still warm, they actually will intensify the storms, make them stronger. So it depends on what time of the year and what temperature the water is on the lakes does have an effect.
Good night.
Yeah. Was it intentional? In no way. Was it intentional? I don't think.
They couldn't have
But
known.
it was an effect. It wasn't because they didn't realize what big bodies of water could do.
See, I was just like, oh yeah, no, government definitely dug them trenches. Just dug them trenches. That's crazy.
I heard chemtrails. People talk about these chemtrails. There's no truth to that.
Yeah, they make all the clouds over in Seattle, and they travel this way.
Yeah.
But dude, that's crazy. So pretty much, the weather's pretty much y'all's lives, huh? That's all.
That's all we do.
That's all you do.
Yeah.
I'm retired from everything else. This is what I do.
And
Outside of that, and raise grandkids.
well,
How many you have?
3.
That's cool, man.
You'll actually see my oldest one, my granddaughter Alyssa, is on our channel from time to time. We have a feature called Learning with Lyssa, where she does short videos explaining things.
That's cool, man.
things that she's afraid of. That's what she did for. She was scared of cicadas, so she did a thing on cicadas. She's scared of thunderstorms. She did a thing on thunderstorms. I don't know about the hummingbirds. I think she just liked them. I want to do a story on
Now,
it.
does the weather have any effect on like cicadas and stuff?
Well, the temperature does about when they come out of the burrows and everything.
They come out how often?
You have different broods. You have some that's 17 year, which is the biggest one, I think, and then you have the
Then some are 7,
7 years.
but there is a certain variety that come out every year.
Yeah, and they're green, by the way. The ones that are out every year are green color.
Yeah.
The rest of them they look like bug-eyed monsters. They're black and red, and they got red eyes.
That was you talking about stuff being green. I saw something. On TikTok. Guy, he was like, y'all, it's feeling and looking like outside like it was whenever I was a kid. He said. And I got but like it's funny how the algorithm on the internet works sometimes. I was already thinking that myself. I was like, stuff looks super green this year.
It does.
It's
It's because we've had a lot of rain and moisture, so everything's nice and green.
And then everybody's like, oh my God, even the mourning doves are back. They were like, mourning doves ain't been here since 2008, it seems like.
Well, there's another type of dove called the Asian dove that's come in that has a completely different color. They look almost identical, except they're a little bit different color. They're whiter colored. And so they've tried to take over. But the mourning dove is the one that's traditional around here. And so we watch all these things, the patterns and the wildlife, because, got Native American blood, so I'm already in tune to it anyway. And people say, well, can you tell the weather by what the animals are doing? So in effect, you can to some extent. So there's a saying that goes, if flies, mosquitoes are biting and humming, swallows fly low, a rainstorm is coming. And it's true. Ring around the sun and moon brings rain or snow upon you soon. Again, it's true. So there's a lot of things to be said for folklore, in this case, weather lore. And there was another term too. It's not weather lore. It's well, anyway. There's another name for it too. So, but some of it has a basis for fact, and so yeah, it's interesting. I'm not too sure about the persimmon seeds though. They tend to cut them open and say, okay, well this has got a fork or a spoon or a show, you know.
But definitely don't trust the groundhog.
Uh, no, the groundhog will get you in trouble every time.
Oh, I guarantee.
As the saying goes, darn it, Jim, I'm a rodent, not a meteorologist.
And you know, the strange thing is, it was right this time, and of course, we did have the 6 more weeks of winter. So I mean, you go figure.
Goodness, that's crazy. I don't know. I think it's just really fascinating. Like everybody is like, I feel like as I've gotten older, like people have just gotten more in tune with the weather.
They have.
And they see, like, you know, especially this part of the country.
With television and the internet and everything, they've gotten more educated on what they're seeing.
I think having it at the palm of your hand too.
Right. And that's what we try to accomplish. Our number one goal in what we're doing was to help the people be safe, because we've been in that position to where you're scared. I used to hate summertime or spring coming because of squall lines.
Yeah.
I used to fear them. I said, oh, man, I cannot stand this time of year.
Right.
Until I got to learning about it. Then I started saying, well, okay, I'm going to do something to try to help people. And that's kind of how the motivation behind this. And so, but I've seen things, you know, I used to travel around and shoot pictures and things. And I remember traveling through, I think it was Oklahoma or someplace like that. And I got to a town right behind where an EF5 tornado had hit. And I tell you, you know, you see things that really human beings shouldn't have to see.
Yeah.
It scars you. And I remember, and this has stayed with me the rest of my life since that happened. But there was a little old lady who was just basically dazed because there was moments after this tornado ripped the thing apart, and she had lost her home, she lost her husband, her children, even lost her dog. She didn't have anything left. And I don't know if I can describe the feelings you feel when you come upon something like that. You know, your empathy just kind of overpowers you, and you say prayers to God in such an extreme intensity that, you know, you just, well, anyway, the last time I saw her, she's being loaded onto an ambulance, and I always wondered what happened to her. But I swore that day that if I ever had an opportunity to keep a community from being ripped apart like that, I would. And when I got to Hopkinsville, I got the opportunity. So that's how I got started in doing it locally.
So so how long have you lived here?
Well, I guess I got back here. I've got family here, but I guess I actually relocated back here in, it was about 2005, I guess, maybe. Or maybe it was earlier than that. It was probably 1995 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was still doing some traveling and everything whenever I saw all that stuff. And it's just, like I said, it's what motivated me from that point forward.
So the recent uptick in, you know, people taking weather a lot more seriously, do you think that's partial to like pretty much like all these, well, I don't even know what you'd call them, weather influencers, weatherfluencers?
I call them armchair meteorologists because and I don't mean to put some people down, but I'll tell you the truth. Every time you have a weather event coming up that's going to impact people, you have them coming out the woodwork. Everybody becomes a weather expert.
And you got 20 different places saying 20 different things.
Absolutely.
And it's super hard to decipher what's actually going to happen.
Especially during the winter storms. That's when it really gets crazy. They'll say, oh, we got snowmageddon coming. They give you outrageous totals and everything. And, you know, so I have people asking me, well, is this true? And I'm constantly saying, no, not necessarily. You know,
they said in January there was a snowstorm we were supposed to get. We were expecting 15 inches or
Right.
something. And I think
remember
we've
that.
And-
barely got an inch.
You know what? You know what happened? Remember me telling you about the cap?
Uh-huh.
That's pretty much what
Yeah.
happened. We saw the storm coming, and just like Mark said, it came and it split. It went south of us and went north of us. So we didn't get, we got probably a couple of 3 inches at the most out of it. But everybody else, like north or south, got 8 inches and upwards, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some truth to that.
Yeah. And what will happen a lot of times with stuff like that, we use weather models. And some of the weather models will go out a week or two as far as how far out they're projecting stuff. And if you know what you're doing, you've learned that those models will get really, really outrageous as they get farther out and away from where they're starting.
Right.
And I've seen some of them have 15, 19, 20 inches on them. But as you get closer, those amounts drop. And when it actually gets to you, oh, we're going to get about 3 inches.
But you know what? You've got to be able to. I think that's where experience comes in, by living here and knowing the terrain and knowing the people and knowing this little, I call them gotchas, the things that will change the forecast. Knowing the fact that the lakes are over there, how's that going to affect your forecast? Even though National Weather Service is giving an accurate forecast, but then when it comes to the lakes, it's going to influence it. They don't take that into consideration.
Right.
Again, that's just. I mean, they can't help that. I have great respect for the National Weather Service, and they work hard at what they do. But sometimes, you know, I will tell everybody I'm going to kind of go against the National Weather Service on this, but I do respect them, and I do. But
Right.
But you know, I'm obligated to the people to tell them what I think is actually going to happen. And sometimes I'll also give them worst casing. I'll tell them, hey, look, worst case, this is going to happen. Best case, this is going to happen, and what I think will happen. That's kind of the way it works. So, and people prefer that. They prefer me to give them the worst case because I explain why I think that. And they say, well, look, we would rather be prepared. So even if it doesn't happen, at least we were prepared for it if it did, because some days it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's something Mark and I discuss all the time about, well, what do we want to say about this? Because we don't agree with what this is showing. And we'll see times where the models, there's no way that model is correct, you know, and we know that. So why even advance that theory? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, do you agree?
I would agree. The models you have to remember are numerical models. They're computer-generated models. They take the data where they're starting from, and the model incorporates, well, the last time it looked like this is what it did. Well, it doesn't take many factors to make that change. So the models are constantly updating. They come out there's some that come out every hour. A lot of them come out every 6 hours. The longest one, the GFS that we showed you the picture of over there when we were over at the studio, it comes out every 6 hours, but it runs out 384 hours. And again, the farther out it goes, the more outrageous it can get. So we've learned to take anything out that far with a grain of salt and look at the other models. We compare them all together. And that's how we kind of come up with a forecast. We look at all the different things, and then we know what stuff reacts like in this area. So we say, yeah, they're overdoing this. Or,
we have to
they're
know.
underdoing this.
We have to know what we're doing, because our spotters' lives are at stake, and so we're always in contact with them. Mark is working the radar; he's watching it, and we're watching these things, because the last thing we want to happen is to lose one of our people, and we've lost people. We lost a good friend in the El Reno, Oklahoma tornado. His name was Tim Samaras, and somebody might know him from when he was on Discovery Channel in Storm Chasers. I had met Tim Samaras, I don't know, probably a year earlier at weather conference here in Bowling Green. So we had a chance to interact with each other, and he was impressed with our group, and so he took it upon himself to be closely affiliated with us. He put on his Facebook page he was a member of our group, which was an honor, because Tim was a weather scientist. He was always very cautious and everything. So to explain what I'm leading up to is that no matter what your level of expertise is and how cautious you are, you can still perish from being too close. So what happened was he was following all the rules. In fact, probably 2 weeks before, some of us were supposed to have gone out there and rode along with him on some of these storms. He had invited us to go along. but just things happened and we couldn't. And so he was sending us a message. He sent me a message in particular. I still got the messages that the next day was going to be a bad day, and giving us tips on keeping our spotters safe and everything. So this was a little bit later. Tim was on this tornado out in El Reno, Oklahoma, and he was practicing the safe distance. He was a mile away from the storm, but this storm was unusual. It was unlike a lot of other normal tornadoes. So what happened was the entire wall cloud descended onto the ground. It went from a mile wide to 2.5 mile wide in about 15 seconds, something like that. And
Is that pretty unusual?
yeah,
That's very unusual.
it sucked him and his whole team up into it, and they were killed. And so he was a good friend, and it still bothers me to this day. And that's kind of when I think our group grew up, because before that, we were kind of like swashbuckling pirates. We'd go out and get on these storms, but then after that, the whole group became somber. You know, we knew then that we could get killed doing what we were doing, and so that hit us pretty hard. And so we really worried about safety and tried to regroup a little bit, and then as time went by, you know, we had close calls. You know, Mark and I were out on one day in a storm in North Christian, and we started taking on hail. And of course, in a tornadic storm, anytime you get hail, the tornado is close to you. So
Is that a prime indicator that?
oh yeah. If you're in a tornadic storm and you're getting hail, then you're in big danger.
Yeah.
The
See,
hail,
I had no idea.
yeah, the hail is always nearest the most dangerous part of the storm.
Okay.
Now, not every tornadic storm will have hail, but
And not every hailstorm will have a tornado.
that's right. So, but if the storm is known to have a tornado and you get hail, that's where you really got to know what you're doing and know what action to take. And so, luckily, he and I got out of there. But it just shows you how quickly something can overcome you if you don't know what you're doing. And I've had several other teams have close call. I had one in the Pembroke tornado in 2021.
Yep.
During that December outbreak that's so well known, and just by the grace of God, I had experienced storm interceptors that knew what they were doing, and they had turned into the path of it, not realizing that they had done that. So unfortunately, I had a recruit with them at the time, and so they managed to get turned around and get out and get safe, but the recruit never came back. I mean, you know, it's not for everybody. In fact, there's only one member of that team that's still with us today. So it's one of those things that you have to learn, and sometimes you can cope with it, sometimes you won't. But this is what we do. It's not for everyone, you know, because you can get killed doing it. In fact, one time Mark and I were out going on a storm over around Buffalo Road in West Christian. We go through this storm or up this road, and we come up on this clearing, and there's a valley there in front of us. It's the meanest green-looking thunderstorm you ever saw. And of course, I fear green storms. They always scare me because a green storm is almost always dangerous and does damage.
When you mean green, you mean like green looking
The
cloud.
color is green.
I've always heard that too.
Yeah.
You know, me and my buddy, like I said, little amateur meteorologist here, I would always be like, "Oh, look, sky's green."
Yep. That's not good when you see that.
That's right.
So
It has to do with how the light refracts through through hail and through a really, really heavy bad.
So that
thunderstorm.
means big old knockout punch is coming.
yeah, it means bad. And
Yeah.
so we decided to stop and turn and get back. And when we turned around, there was about 10 cars that had followed us up in there, which is the silliest thing you can do, is to follow one of our teams, you know, because if they know what they're doing, but if you don't know what you're doing and they have to make a quick retreat, you know, you could get trapped or worse. So some guy even pulled up and says, "Is there going to be a tornado?" You know? And what did we say? I don't even remember what we said to him, but basically we told him, get out of there. And so they did. They made a hasty retreat. And luckily, as we were coming down the road, we had a tree come down behind us and everything. It was pretty scary.
That reminds me of movie Twisters, come out last year. Did y'all go see that?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, the original Twister
It's-
movie, everybody in my team could tell you every line that's in that storm or in that movie.
I
Because
think y'all were 2 rows in front of us whenever we went and seen it.
It could be.
Yeah.
Did y'all take was it like a whole group of like weather
I think
spotters?
there
who went?
were,
Yeah,
yeah.
y'all definitely were like two
Yeah,
rows in front
yeah.
of us.
You got to get up pretty early today to get to a movie like that and not
Yeah.
have the weather spotters there with
And
you.
it's Hollywood. I mean,
Yeah.
you're scientists do shoot rockets now into tornadoes to get weather data. We don't shoot fireworks into them.
Yeah.
And a lot of what they did with the polymer and stuff like that, that's not
We actually
scientifically
did.
possible.
We did build hell pads, and basically hell pads are blocks of styrofoam covered in aluminum foil. And so when the hail hits it, it makes an impression in the foil, so we can tell how big the hail was when it hit. And
Right.
we'd take them, stake them to the ground, and get out of there, and then let the hail come over them. It's kind of neat, we
So
don't do that anymore. We
Y'all were
used to.
talking about everybody like following y'all and everything. That brought me to that part of the movie. If you haven't seen Twister, sorry. You've had your time, okay? You've listened to Ain't No Love in Oklahoma enough, okay? But one of the parts of that movie though is like it was like everybody going and meeting up with that one influencer meteorologist guy, and they were like,
Following him around.
yes, and like people ended up getting hurt.
Yeah. And that's
There's a problem right now. In fact, Oklahoma has recently, I believe, passed a law that you have to have a license from them to chase. Because everybody, it got to the point where nobody could get out of the way of the storms because the roads were jammed up with so many storm chasers.
It's almost like that the other day when we had those storms coming in from Arkansas. You remember?
Yeah.
I mean, they were just lined up.
I-24, we've got markers on our radar. We can see where people have, who are chasers, spotters, whatever, have a marker. And they were just lined up out on I-24.
I mean,
Of course, Reed Timmer was in here too.
yeah.
Have y'all met Reed Timmer?
Some of our people have. They're doing a little bit of work. We're gonna get him by here one of these days, and
I want you and him on here. I want you and him on here.
I don't know. He's a hard fella to catch,
Well,
but I'm gonna.
yeah.
We're gonna try to. What we're gonna try to do is, I have a goal now. I want to do a spotter memorial for those who've died or been killed while they were doing that. And of course, we've got some of our group. We just lost a close friend yesterday.
Not
one of
in
our-
storms, but we've had them. We
Yeah.
had one die in a car accident. We've had a couple die from natural causes. And
We lost one yesterday, and which was, he was like the other half of my heart because his wife was a very close spotter with me, and she assisted me a lot, and so it hurt me bad when she died, and then he died yesterday, and it's just, it's tough. You grow close because your lives have depended on each other all this time, and then when something happens, it's not supposed to be like that. You're supposed to die in a tornado, or you're supposed to, I don't know, you go out like a hero.
Yeah.
But even though, to me, they're all heroes because they've stuck with it. They know what they're doing, and I trust them,
I think if you're putting your life on the line like that in general, even,
Yeah.
working at the National Weather Service, staying up those late nights, like I said, whenever we were talking off camera earlier, my daddy, he grew up going and he'd get up 1 a.m. going and checking on car wrecks
Right.
and everything like that. I think if you're in that emergency field in general, I
Yeah.
think it's something to be said for those
Yeah.
types of people.
I remember when we first
it takes
started.
a special heart and a special constitution,
Yeah.
a special
To have
mental
that
attitude to
selfless
do it.
mentality,
Yeah.
to know that you could be going out and something like that to keep people safe says a lot about your integrity as a person.
Well, it's, we're not perfect. Nobody is, but
No.
and we have our faults. But to be honest, our motivation and our heart's right. It is a heartfelt desire to help the people and help the community, but we'll go out of the way to pull jokes on each other. I mean, we've done all kinds of stuff to not only us but other agencies. I remember during the big ice storm in 2009. Everything was shut down and everything. Of course, the jail crew was out to clean roads and stuff, and we had a ham radio, which was only communications with counties to our north and everything. But the jailer had pulled up with in a big Tahoe full of trustees, and so he comes inside and they stay in the vehicle. So someone said, hey, I need to get that vehicle out there and move. So one of my guys says, okay, I'll move it. Well, what he does, he goes running out in there, jumping in the vehicle like he's trying to escape. He said, come on, guys, we're going to get out of here. And I mean, they broke the doors down trying to get out of there. And it took a little
The
while.
inmates trying to bail out of the vehicle.
They didn't
because
want to
they're
get time
trustees.
added
They
to
didn't
the,
want
yeah, they didn't want to
extra
get
time or
time added
anything.
to their sentence. So
Oh, so these fellas was in the penitentiary.
they were in the jail. Yeah, it
Local
was
jail,
local
yeah.
jail.
Okay.
But they just didn't want to get more time at it. But it was funny at the time, but they didn't really think it was that funny afterwards.
Good Lord.
But that's just a sample of one of the things that they'll do. They'll pull jokes like you wouldn't believe, and but it breaks the monotony and also breaks the tension. You know, it is a sign that that you're feeling apprehensive about things you're doing, and so you know.
Well, I think a lot of times people forget to really trust their gut.
Right.
And I think if your gut's telling you you need to do something, you probably need to do it, especially in my line of work. You know, like I feel like you know yourself better than anybody else, you know.
Well, you do become sensitive to your surroundings, and you can see something, and you may not know why you feel the way you feel, but something has made you think that. And you should always pay attention to that little voice inside of you that says, hey, you don't need to go that way, go this way.
Right.
And almost always you'll find it was the best thing to do. So, yeah, there's so much involved in what we do and how we do it. I could spend a lifetime trying to tell you everything, and I'd still never tell you everything that happened to us and that you need to know. It's been a life of adventure and laughs and sorrows like you wouldn't believe. It's just you run the full gamut of emotions, and so in doing that though, you're also prone to PTSD because you get out there and you're in a life or death situation. You got a tornado on the ground right behind you, and I've had several of them. I had tornadoes right behind them, and I'm begging them to run, run, run. That's my biggest quote: is run, 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 and move south. It's almost always the direction I tell them to go because that's what they need to do. And they know now that if weather operation radios them and tells them to move, that they do it. They don't question it. And so I don't know. It's a strange thing.
I think another thing that has really piqued my interest over the past couple of months, I'd say past couple of years, is the shifting of Tornado Alley.
Mm-hmm.
You know, growing up, my aunt and uncle, they were, I forget the name of it. They're going to call me and they're going to get on to me after this. They were like the top ranking officers in the Salvation Army.
Right.
And so growing up, they, like whenever I was growing up, they were stationed in Tulsa, they were stationed in Dallas,
Right.
Arkansas, Oklahoma, everything like that. And they would always get these bad storms.
Yeah.
And, they were like, oh, we live in Tornado Alley. And I didn't really quite understand what that was until I was older. But now seeing that we pretty much live right smack dab in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's called Dixie Alley now. And that basically is a shift from, it's not really a shift. I think it's an addition to the real Tornado Alley out in Oklahoma and places like that. But there's been a uptick in tornadoes in what they call Dixie. You know, there's Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, all that. And in fact, Kentucky is, last time I saw, is number 3 or number 2 in the nation for nighttime tornadoes. And so the differences in the two alleys is that Dixie Alley seems always to be nighttime events. And almost every tornado, my people wouldn't know how to act if they had a daytime event where they could actually see what's going on. But the fact that they've been like that and having to suffer with this, Reed Timmer will not come to our place and spot because.
Now, he did this last one, but.
Yeah, he did the last one. I will say that, but he's getting a little more comfortable.
Hello?
Sorry about that.
You're good, dude.
He's been responsible, though. He's responded to enough that now he's learned how to deal with nighttime tornadoes. But our people have done it so much, it's second nature to them. They wouldn't know how to act if they went out west and saw these straight line roads and seeing all this stuff. they know to watch for power flashes. That's one of the things. They know to watch for lightning and eliminating a funnel. They know to about the hail rule, and it just is constant. I mean, when you hear the noise of a freight train, you've actually too close. It's almost too late to get out of
I've
the way.
heard over and over and over again that if you hear a train coming,
Mhm.
you're a little bit too late.
Well, we did have one that reported the freight train, but he said, I've got the sound of a freight train. We're getting all antsy. And he says, never mind, I hear the train whistle. You know? So everybody's a little on edge, but that was another funny event that occurred.
That's
And,
crazy, dude.
yeah, but
And when you hear one, you may say it sounds like a train. Better apt is like a jet engine. Because it's not just like a train. There's also a rumble. There's a low rumble that you feel.
it's kind of
more
like
than hear.
a green storm. When you see a green storm with the thunder, you feel that rumbling in your chest, and you can say, oh my gosh, this is something I'm scared of. And your first thing is to take flight, but you got to know what direction to go in.
Right.
You know, but yeah, it can be pretty frightening out there. And most people, in fact, we just said this to all of our new recruits. Hey, if you don't know God when you get in here, you will before you leave.
Right.
And because you get a chance to see things that you can only imagine dreaming about. And yeah, it's something else.
I'm completely just fascinated with like your both of y'all's always on mentalities about always being there for people and stuff. I really feel like y'all really take the brunt hit of it at the end of the day, though. I
Yeah.
mean, what are you sleeping like? What's your sleep schedule like?
Well,
What is this sleep you
yeah,
speak of?
yeah, we've been on the air constantly for, gosh, I don't know. We may be on 15 hours
Yeah.
straight, and then break. We have certain rules like Facebook. You have to break, or they cut you off after 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So many people that don't like to go to YouTube, we try to accommodate them, but after 8 hours, they're going to get cut off. So we try to break for that and then come back on maybe as much as just a few minutes later, or even a few hours.
Thing
Depends.
about a grandma is she gonna
Yeah.
be on her Facebook.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
And
Fat finger and sharing stuff.
I
Don't know they're doing
I
it.
I know. And you know, I've tried to educate them. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to have to pay anything. YouTube. Well, you don't have to pay to subscribe on YouTube. It is just, they may ask you for your email address, but that's just to prevent people that are not as honest as I am from inflating the numbers by giving you false email addresses, you know. So, but you're not going to hear from them. They just want to make sure that you're a real person when you do that.
Right.
And so that's why we ask for subscribers a lot of times, because YouTube does pay us for ads that they sell on our site.
Sub to my boy if you want to stay safe. Understand?
Yeah,
That's what we got to do here.
that's right.
A lot of people don't understand that, like, yeah, I mean, a view is a view.
Yeah.
But when you're subbing to these people, like, that's pretty much like, that's like,
It's
you know,
guaranteed viewer. I
yes.
guess.
I mean, you're gonna get those notifications.
that's
You're gonna
right.
get those, all that stuff, you know. For those who don't know, like I said earlier, I first came in contact with Mr. Powell, Mr. Booker over here back early last month. Whenever whenever my town really got hit with some crazy rain. I'm talking, I had never in my life seen so much rain.
It was a 15 or 13 inches in a 24-hour time period.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think you've ever seen anything like that either.
No,
I've seen 13 in a month, but 13 in a day
that's pretty
is,
unusual.
yeah.
It's absolutely nuts. Well, I have my studios in downtown Hopkinsville, and one of the things that I was, you know, like I said, you know, you're talking about, you know, your gut instinct.
Right.
I was like, I'm typically not the one to do this type of thing,
Yeah.
but I was like, I'm gonna go downtown. I'm gonna check on my studio, my space. I'm gonna take my drone up,
Yeah.
and the stuff I saw, you know, you saw in the first episode, I said that I'll put footage up. I'll put the video right here so you can see it. And the way that water rose out of Little River so
I know.
fast.
I know. And you know
that
that
was unusual. We used to get some flooding like that from time to time.
Yeah.
But then they had a project where they went and they cleaned all the trash and all the trees and everything out of a little river. And we really didn't have a problem like that for a while. But then all of a sudden with this one, it just overwhelmed everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be, they're good for a small, I mean, we can take 4 or 5 inches without any trouble. But when you get on up there and over a close period of time, then overpowers everything. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
That's always been my biggest concern is that, you know, I see this coming, and even with the stuff over in Somerset where all the people lost their lives, I felt really bad that next day because I think, well, what if I had covered over that area? Would I have saved any more lives and everything? And it bothers me because I can't stop it. You know, I want to. When
I think
see,
if we had the power to stop everything, I think everything would be sunshine and rainbows.
well, not necessarily. I like a good storm every now and then. But
Oh, me too.
I don't want a severe one. I like a good snowstorm every now and then. But it's what makes life interesting, the differences in the seasons. And that's why I like living in this area because you do get to experience 4 seasons. You know, there's nothing better than going out on a fall, crisp morning, and you're looking up and you see the colors of the trees, of the leaves, and you think, wow, what a great day to be alive. And then the first snow, people are excited about the first snow. And who hasn't come running to a window to look out to see if it's snowing? You know, everybody does that.
I get about one good snow in, and I'm like, no.
Okay, I'm done.
I think it's funny how I know how I operate at least. I'm like, in the wintertime, it'll get real cold.
Yeah.
I'll be like, man, I can't wait till it's hot again.
Yeah, but I'm not a hot weather person either. I mean, you can have fun in snow. You know, there's people that make snow cream. I've got a whole booklet on snow cream. I need to publish it, but I haven't. But it's all these different recipes for making snow cream. And people, that used to be a tradition. You know, that's one of my fondest memories of my childhood is my mom would make snow cream, and me and my brothers and sisters, we would look forward to snow because of that. But nowadays, they've lost that tradition. You know, they seem to think that well, they don't even know anything about it. They say, well, snow cream, how do you make that? What is that? So
It's like certain things.
Is that safe? Is that
Yeah.
safe? It's safe.
It's a delicacy like poutine is for Canadians.
I guess so. But, you know, and then there's this thing, you don't want to eat snow, it's radioactive. Well, you know, that was back, remember when they did, or you don't remember, but probably in the 60s, they used to do nuclear testing in the atmosphere. And so, yeah, that would be radioactive. And you didn't eat snow back then, but that has since been, of course, it hadn't been like that in 50 or 60 years now. So it's no longer in the atmosphere.
Well, I think that lemon flavored snow is pretty.
Yeah. You can have all that yellow snow
I don't
you
think
want.
I want no yellow snow, brother.
Yeah, what's the old song? Watch out where the huskies go, and don't you eat that yellow snow.
Yeah, it's but you know, every type of weather has some things to look forward to in it. You know, there's no such thing as a bad day, really. When you stop and look at it, the exception might be if you've had a destructive storm, people have lost their lives. But our people, you know, out west, they whoop and holler about seeing a tornado. But I tell my people, look, people's lives have changed under that tornado. You don't want to go out there whooping and hollering because somebody's mourning and their lives has changed and will never go back to normal.
That's always been my thing about, you know, in my free time on like, you know, everybody has their, you know, back in the day, you know, my parents, they would watch like the nightly news
Right.
and everything whenever they eat dinner and everything like that. But me, I sit down and I watch YouTube videos. More importantly, I had a stint where I was watching like you know, the craziest videos. People are going to be in the chat on this video being like, oh, I definitely do that. But, you know, top 5 most destructive tornadoes, you know, in the past 20 years or something like that. And I remember watching those things and thinking, you know, people were going in there and they were filming these tornadoes, not knowing how badly it had affected everybody in that community. You know, like Joplin, what was that, 2011 or something like that?
Mike Bettis from the Weather Channel found out.
Yeah.
He was in Joplin afterwards, and he was filming. He was live on the Weather Channel. And he was talking about it, and he happened to turn around and look down, and he lost it. He just broke up because there was a dead body right there. and
Yeah.
he couldn't go on. He just stopped for a minute.
Many people can't take what we see out there in the worst of the storms. And I got to admit, there's been times when I wondered, well, how long am I going to keep doing this? And I don't have an answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go on until I can't. But I don't know.
I think you should know, but if you don't know, there are so many people who are like grateful for both of you and how much you guys like keep them safe because like, we were talking, my wife and I were talking, and I'll never forget, she likes to go into the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a basement, anything like that. But we have two dogs, Max and Ruby, like the old little
Oh, yeah.
Bunny Rabbit TV
Yeah.
show.
Mhm.
And Max is a corgi. He's terrified of everything. So whenever he hears thunder and everything, he's gone.
Yeah.
But she got him in the tub, and she was like, "Man, David is so calm on that live stream now."
They don't see me inside.
Yeah. I think it's crazy because I'll never forget it. Even, like I said, very rarely do I get in that sense where I'm like, oh, I need to go ahead and do something. I need to go ahead and take cover now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm the
Yeah.
kind of guy though. If I see something, Logan's like, get back in the house, Hunter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm filming it. I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna look at it. She's like, Hunter, get in the house.
Yeah.
And dude, Friday afternoon, whenever stuff got to getting,
Yeah.
you were in there just chilling. You was like, all right, y'all, we're gonna make it through this. And I'm like, I'm just like, you serious about this? Are you sure? 'Cause, it ain't looking like it.
Well, people, if you frighten them, they're not going to make good decisions. They need to be clear-headed and understand what's going on. And when I'm serious, they know I'm serious. I don't joke around with things like that, but I don't panic them. I won't get on there and scream and holler. I will get on there and tell you need to take cover. I'll name the location. I say, if you're there, you need to take cover right now. Don't wait. Don't go outside to look at it. I'll talk to you like that out there because I know you're watching or something. I'll say, don't go out there and look at it because in Joplin, when that tornado hit it, the vast majority of the fatalities were people who went out to look at it. I'm serious. They didn't. They had gotten a warning. Their family was in cover, but they had to go out there and see it. And sometimes, trust me, just look at it in videos. Don't go out there and try to see it yourself. Think of yourself and think of your family, and take cover. It's nothing's worth it.
Those most recent storms that we had this past weekend, there is so obviously there's the regular drones that like I fly,
Right.
and then there's drones called FPV drones where you wear like the goggles, stuff like that. They go about 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
There is a guy
I've seen them race those before.
out
That's wild.
there's a guy in Oklahoma that took his drone and flew it through a tornado.
Wow.
Let me find it real quick.
Well, he flew it into it anyway.
Oh, he did it. He did it twice.
Really?
He did it twice. Let me find it real quick.
Yeah. Well, they had an experiment going at one time. I saw some of the chasers out there. They had a model airplane, and they would fly it up, and it had several instrument clusters on little parachutes, and it kicked those out in the inflow, so they would go into the tornado.
Dude, look at this. Watch this guy. We're going to put this in here so y'all can watch this too.
Wow. That is absolutely amazing. That alone is.
Yeah.
Like the drone that I had, I got too scared of that thing. Thing would rip up at 90 miles an hour. And I would imagine that the way that it was doing this, like the way that it was traveling and how fast it was going, that's the only reason why. Of course, you see it start to spin right there because it's in the rotation.
Yeah.
But like, is that not absolutely insane
That's
that
the
we're
most
capable
amazing
of?
thing.
This is like Twister's level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Steven Spielberg level right
Yep.
there
But
in real
that's,
life.
that could be such a great research tool.
Well, I think we're definitely in that realm of like, whenever I saw this, I was like, oh, I got to show them this.
Well, you saw the technology we have. We can even look at buoys out in the ocean and everything,
Yeah.
which is going to be useful during hurricane season. So we're going to be able to do a lot of things to help folks that they have people that lived on the coast and
Yeah.
And but it's one of those things. Technology is just amazing now.
We a couple years ago, earlier, David was showing me all these buoys and all these different webcams that from all over the world and stuff. And he showed me one of the places. Was it Abilene, Texas?
Abilene, yeah.
Abilene. I pronounce it every time. I mispronounce that every time. But you showed me, the dust storms and stuff. You talk about being inside storms.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, my buddies and I, we took a road trip from Hopkinsville all the way over to Monument Valley in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
I had just bought a Jeep Renegade. I think it was brand new. I drove it off the lot. I had just started making videos and stuff, and I was like, let me go ahead, let me finance something. Dumb financial decisions at 19 years old. But we drove it plumb across the United States. Well, we wanted to go to White Sands where they have the missile launching facility and stuff.
Right.
I think that's where they did like the nukes and everything.
Right.
And one of my buddies, he was stationed at El Paso at the time, and he was like, "Hey, let's go to White Sands." And so he drove up. He met us. He met us at our hotel, and then we were driving down. You guys ever been to Alamogordo?
No.
That area? So it's like the town is up here, and then White Sands is down here, and it's like it's kind of like Kansas. You could see plumb across the state.
Mm-hmm.
It's so flat. Well, we drove straight down this straight, down this straight and narrow road for maybe 15 minutes, and it was crazy. You guys ever seen Mad Max?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Fury Road. You know how whenever they're all coming and all the cars are coming down the road and you see the big dust storm.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking off to my left and I said, "Y'all, what is that? What is that?" "I don't know. Probably a storm or something." Well, we need to keep on going because we drove all this way to come to White Sands.
Uh-huh.
We're driving all the way down here and it keeps on getting closer. It is a dust storm.
Oh, wow.
And we are right smack dab in the middle of it. Well, we get up to the front gate of White Sands. They recently made that a national park. That's like the newest national park, I think. And we got up, but at the time it wasn't, so it didn't have like all the protections and stuff that national parks do now. We got up in there. We were going to pay we were going up in there. We had all the buddies in the back seat, and we were like, "Hey, we're here to check out the park." And they were like, "Do you see what's going on outside?" And the hotel had given us boogie boards and stuff to go boogie board and everything like that. And she was like, "No charge. Don't know why y'all are here. And I'll put footage down so you guys can see all this." But we had, instead of using those boogie boards to cover, instead of using those boogie boards to like sled and stuff, we used it to cover the backs of our heads.
Wow.
From the sand
Because
hitting
you're getting
us.
sandblasted.
Yeah.
I had never in my life. So you guys were talking about being in it. That come to me as y'all were talking about all that. That's the only time I could ever remember being in something like that. I've been graced with a lot of blessings, not being caught up in anything around here.
Perhaps you would like to ride along with one of our intercept teams.
My wife would kill me, dude.
Only with a tornado, instead of sand, it's going to be pieces of wood. It's going to be bricks, 2x4s, paper clips, pens, saw blades, forks, anything like that.
It'd be terrible.
Yeah, weather can be terrible, but again, it can still be beautiful too.
Yeah, the rainbows, double rainbows.
Right? Yeah.
I swear.
But there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I've been there and I've seen it, and there's no pot of gold there.
Yeah, I've seen a porta-john at the end of a rainbow.
Come on, bro. Oh, wow. But hey, y'all, I think we're about done here. Okay. It's super cool, man. One thing about it, David Powell can put up anything on Facebook and people are going to flock to him. Yeah. It's because they trust him. They trust you, Mr. Mark. And I'm grateful to have y'all in the studio today, sitting here chatting with me, man.
Well, it's an honor to be with you because obviously you and I have been kind of missing each other in life, and I've always wanted to kind of meet you. You've wanted to tag up with me, so maybe now we'll do it more often or something.
Yeah, you might catch me on a live stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, except David's going to be on there checking out the weather. We're going to have a co-stream. I'll be playing Fortnite or something. Goodness.
Oh no, you'll be watching. Believe me.
I'll be watching scared to death
Yeah,
with
nah,
Logan
you'll be
telling
all
me
right.
to get in the tub. Goodness.
That's actually a good safety thing. If you don't have a, the bathrooms, interior of the house, especially, that's a good place to be.
Yeah. But y'all, until next time, David, got anything you want to say to this camera right here?
We keep doing our best. Hope I never disappoint you, and keep on watching.
Keep your eyes on the sky. Be aware. Watch us when we're on. Y'all be safe.
And until next time, I want you to love yourself. I want you to love others. And please put your best foot forward. If you are ever having doubts that you are not going where you want to in life, keep that foot forward. I promise you better days are ahead. We love you. We'll see you later, all right?